Hi, we're just gonna wait a few more minutes till more people to join or people to join the meeting to get started. Okay, let's get started for today. So today we're going to be learning about 2D arrays with loops, and before we've covered just normal arrays, but now we're going to cover 2D arrays, which are nested arrays or arrays within arrays, and how you can use those, iterate through those with loops. So we can often use nested for loops to loop through 2D arrays, which, like I said, is a loop, a nested for loop is a for loop inside of a for loop, and a 2D array is an array of arrays. So in this example, this variable array is an array of three different sets of arrays. The first one having the values 0 and 2, second one 3 and 0, third one 5 and 6. And each of these 2D arrays have rows and columns. And this is just an example of how you would iterate through the 2D arrays. So just a variable row in array and then element in row. So the rows would be going across, and then the different elements would be, of course, the different elements of array. So in this example, it's iterating through each array and each element through each of those arrays. And if the element is equal to 0, which we see twice in this array, the total is just going to add 1 to itself. And if we just run this code block, we can see that the total is going to come out to 2 in this loop, and this loop is just the same code, but yes, it's just the exact same code, and going through the exact same loop, there's two instances of zeros in the array, and that's just going to add the 1 to the total twice. So 2, the total is 2 over here in the spread statement, and 4 over here. And we can use this to search for terms within the array, like iterate through each of the arrays within the array to find a specific term. So here we're just defining a function contain 2x, and it's going to check to see if the function contains a number 2. So here we're just going to iterate through each of the 3 arrays of the array for row in x, row being the row number, like row 1, 2, 3. And if 2 is in the row, in each of these, the row being this array, and this array, if 2 is in their row, it's going to return true, else it's going to return false. And this is just the same thing. And yeah, this is just same different ways of writing the same code. And I'm just going to run this code block, and it's just going to determine whether there's 2 in the array. And just by looking at, we know that there are 2 cases of 2. So when iterating, like when it iterates to the first array, 2 is in the row, so it'll return true. And yeah, so that's just a basic example of how you can iterate through 2D arrays to check to see if there's certain values. But we can use this not only to check if there's values, we can also use this to change the array. So first, here's just our array, we're going to print it, and rows and columns is just 2 variables defined. The rows is going to be equal to the length of the array. So there's going to be 3 rows, and then in each of those arrays, the length of that is 2 because there's 2 elements. So this is like iterating 3 times, iterating 2 times through the different rows and the different columns. And it's going to print the row and the column. This side is rows, this side up and down is columns. And if that value is going to be equal to 0, we can just access that to access values in a 2D array, it's like accessing values in a normal array, but there's 2 sets of brackets with 2 parameters, because you're in the array, after accessing the first array, you're going to want to access, or after accessing a certain array in the 2D array, you want to access a certain value, a certain element in that sub array. So we're just going to be checking throughout all of the values here. If the value is equal to 0, then we're just going to change the value of that element to be equal to 10, and then print the array. So now we can do some practice exercise. I'm just going to give you guys some time to write a function that checks if an array contains 2 or 3. And this is very similar to the contain 2 function, but just contain 2 or 3. And yeah. I'm just going to give you some time to try and practice it on your own. Just write a function that contains 2 or 3. And I'll give you 5 minutes or so. Oh yeah, sorry, I didn't see the chat. I'll send the link. Just try that link in the chat. It should work. No problem. And if any of you are done and feel like can move on, just say so in the chat. Okay, so I'm just gonna go over I'm just gonna write a quick solution of the contain the change 23. So first of all, you want to start by iterating through each element of the list. So for row and sorry, for row in X, and then if, if two from row four. Oh, but maybe we don't want to make it again. If X equals if you just want to access the row column of it is equal to 2 for that same value 3, then just change the just change the value of that element from the 2D array 77. I think there's probably a better way of providing this instead of in X and then in the row. We can just do of the range of length of the array. And then for the column, the range of the length of the that specific row. So that's just getting the range of the values in that specific row. So when we run it, yeah, should be equal to true, true, true. Because as you can see here, I mean, both of these arrays are already the same. None of them are 2 or 3, so both of these functions return true. For this one, all the 2s and 3s became, or the 1, 2 became 77 when you run this function, and the outputs are equal. And for this one, the 3s, the 3 in the input of the function of the 2D array of the function comes to 77 out and 77 in the output, and that's true. So next, we're going to go over how to create 2D arrays using loops. So now instead of modifying and accessing pre-existing 2D arrays with loops, now we're going to be creating them with loops. So same thing with 1D arrays, we can initially create an empty array to fill. And for this is a loop just to fill in the array. So for I in range 3, so I will iterate 0, 1, 2, and it'll just access that specific index in the array, and it'll take the value, or take the value of, it'll just be 1 times 4, and then just print the array. Yeah, so here, this is just an array of 4 ones, and we're just doing that 3 times for each. We're filling each of the 3 indexes of the array with another array with length 4 and all the values equal to 1. And here's just another example of filling up the array just in increasing order. So starting with the blank array, which have two variables that we iterate through, I and j, and that's just represents like the row and column of the array. And we just set the specific value of that I and j, the row and the column, to equal to 4 times the row plus the column. And that gets you this increasing order. But this one, okay, so starting with the first two, that's just creating a normal array of starting here, just creating a blank 4-element array of zeros, and then creating an array of that 3 times. But this one will not work, because by setting the by setting the 0th row and 0th column number, it's actually not, because this is like referencing the other arrays and it's creating a duplicate of it. When you're changing one element of it, you're actually changing all the others in the separate arrays of the 2D arrays. So that's why this second scenario does not work. And you can also create an array by appending. So instead of changing a specific value in an array using given like your indexes or your row and column, you can append to the array, which is just adding something to the end. So first, in this example, we just start with a blank array, and for range so I is in the range of 0 to 11, or range of 12, and if I mod 4 is equal to 0, that basically means if I is a multiple of 4, or if I is divisible by 4, then we're going to append another blank array to the array variable. And if it's not equal to 4, I mean, this will happen no matter what. We're just going to add the value, just cast the value of I equal to 4 as an integer to round it. So if I, for example, is 1, then we're going to set the first term, the first element of the array, or the first array within the array, and we're just going to append that value to it. This basically allows it so that when I is from 0, 1, 2, 3, all the values will be cast down to 0 because of this integer. It's like rounding down, and that makes it so that we can have arrays with increments of 4 in each of the subarrays, as shown in this example. And then we're just printing the array at every step. Why does it say that I need to be 13-year-olds or older to access the service? I'm not sure why, because it's just Google Colab. Do you have like another account you can use, like a parent's account that you can use for it instead? It's just sign in with the Google account, but not sure why. Oh, okay. I'm actually not sure, unless I can copy the text in the chat for you, and you can use like an online Python IDE and code it instead of using Google Colab. But Yeah, you could use Jupyter. I'm not even I'm not sure why you need to be 13 years older. Because if I open like an incognito mode and then just paste in and just paste in the link to the collab, I can access it in incognito mode without signing into Google. Can you try using incognito if you have access? Oh no, incognito mode on Google Chrome. So you're not signed into any of your accounts and it's like hidden. Oh, you're on incognito mode? Is it a it might be a if it's like a computer restriction and not like the Google problem, I don't really know how to help you. I guess your best bet would to be just to use another IDE because you can still yeah, because you can still view it. I know you can't run it without a Google account, but you can still view it and then use another IDE. Okay, so back to the lesson. Now we're gonna do our second practice exercise. Here's just an example of a code segment used to create a 2D array with the first five positive integers in a 5 by 5 array, so it's 5 rows, 5 columns. And here you just have to, given this 2D array, you want to store all these values in a 1D list and print the list. So this should be the output, just 1, 3, 4, 6, 7, 8, 23, just convert it into one continuous, not really convert it, but just print one continuous version of of this 2D array. And if you have any questions, you can just ask in the chat. And I'll give you some time to figure it out for yourself. Okay, so for the solution to that problem, it's pretty simple just using a pen. So you just want to loop through each of the each of the arrays. I think this is four a 4 by 6 2D array. Just loop through each of the arrays within the 2D array, and then loop through each of the elements within them, and then append it to your second link array, case ARR, and you just print it, and then you have the combination of everything. So this next one, I'm just gonna go over the solution because there's one more practice problem at the end. So given a 2D array, this is the goal. Print it out so it looks like something like this. And this one's pretty simple. You just create the 2D array. And to do this, you just want to print like new lines at the end of every three. So you go 1, 2, 3, and then you want to print to a new line or print a blank line character to skip to the next line, print the next three, skip, print the next three. So to do this, you would just iterate through each of the rows, and then you want to print out for all of the elements in that row. You want to print out the you just want to print out that number like 1, 2, 3, and then at the end, after you loop through that row and you finish all the elements in that row, you just want to print just a blank print statement which prints a new line. And then it's going to do that for the second row. It's going to iterate through all three, and for each one, it's going to print that out. And then at the end, it's going to print a new line and do that for the third one. Now for another sample problem, write a function that counts the number of strings in a 2D array. So to do this, you need to use the type function. So type of, you just put a string as the parameter to the type function, and then compare it with another function, another variable, and then if they're the same type, then it will return true. So you want to create the function, and we're just going to use a count variable to keep track of the number of strings in that 2D array, and that's going to start at 0, and we're going to increment it every time we count our string. And we're just going to loop through every in X, which is the 2D array, just loop through all the rows, and for each of those rows, we're going to iterate through all the elements. And then for each element, we're going to check to see if the type of that element is the same as type of quotation mark, a quotation mark, which is just a string. So this is just checking to see if the type of that element is a string, and if it is, we're just going to increment count by 1. So count is 5, it will become 6, and so on. At the end, we'll just return count, which is the number of strings in the 2D array. And yeah, and oh yeah, and then this is just checking to see if the word function, if the number of strings in that array is equal to 4, then print true. And it is true because there's 1, 2, 3, 4 strings in the array. And this is just one string because it's one pair of quotation marks. So for the last practice problem, I'm going to give you some time to do this on your own. You have to create a 2D array that contains the first 5 positive even integers. It should have 5 rows and 5 columns. And I'm going to go over a solution at the end. And if you have any questions, just put it in the chat. Okay, so I'm gonna go over the solution for this last practice problem now. So first, we just want to create the blank array. So array, that's just a blank array. And then we know it wants to have 5 rows and 5 columns, right? So to do this, we can use 2 for loops, one for the rows and one for the columns. Each iterate 5 times, for a total of 25 times, that populate this blank array with that specific row and column over. So for row range 5 or column, and we want to set that element with the specific row and column in the range. So we'll start with the element with the row 1, column 1, and then the row 1, column 2, yada, yada, yada. And then I'll do that for each of the rows. We want to set that to be equal to, in total, the first 25 positive even integers. So let's just say we're doing this practice without the even. First, we would let's just say we want to do 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So first we'd set this just to be equal to the column number plus, so if it's the column number by itself, then you'll have an array of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the first row and 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 in the second, but we don't want that. We want to start from 6 on the second row instead of back from the beginning, and 11 on the second row. So we want to add 5 times, this is the same trick that we used before, column, oh no, row, five times the row. So once, no, row minus 1. So this may seem confusing, but first, so for row 1, column 1, that should be equal to 1. Row 1, column 2, that's 2, 3. For all these, the row is 1, right? So minus 1, this part's equal to 0. So for the first row, it's just going to be equal to the column number. So this is just an example. It's going to be equal to so it's going to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then when we get to the second one, it's going to be, we want it to start from 5 and then add the column number. And this is row 2. So we want to subtract 1 from the row number and then multiply by 5. This is to basically start it where you left off. So this will start, row is 2 minus 1, that's 1 times 5, that's 5, plus a column number, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, and then it does that until it reaches 1 through 25. But that's the first 1 through 25 integers. But we want the first 25 positive even integers. So to do this, we just multiply all of this by 2. So instead of going 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 all the way to 25, it'll go 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, all the way to, yeah. Once again, the array. Oh. Oh, yeah. Oh, we don't need to subtract by 1 because the column number is already, the row starts at 0 because Python works in index 0. When it's range 5, row will increment 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. So we can just delete the minus 1. And for the column, that's actually going to start at 0 too. So we just want to add 1 to this, so it starts at 1 instead of 0. Because right now the range is going 0, 1, 2, 3, 4. We want it to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Oh. Yeah. I mean, okay. Oh, wait, I need to create the blank array. Okay. Oops, I accidentally stopped sharing. The easiest way, I think the easiest way to do this, but you could either append or just create the problem was that, oh, we have another problem, but yeah, so now we have the problem before was I didn't have the blank array, but starting from 1 through 5, array of row column is equal to 2 times column. Oh, yeah, this should be outside. Because that's going to be 10 times the row number. So. Oh, I just made the same mistake. I made the same mistake over here, which is that oh, I think it's yeah, I made this mistake, which is it created the arrays are referencing each other, so they kind of have duplicates. So to solve this, we can just use a blank array, and then instead of setting it to a row and column, we just append we can just append it to the end of the array. And then this will create one long list, and we want it to be 5 by 5. So every 5 times we just want to, this should be within this for loop, but not within this one. We just want to confirm, wait, no. Oh yeah, oh yeah, you need to separate it every 5 times. So this is kind of a realistic scenario because you don't always get things on the first try. But every 5 times you want to, oh, array of, basically we want the 2D arrays, right? So array of row, append, so that's just creating the blank. And then that, yes, this creates the, basically what I did is created a blank 5 by 5 2D array. And after, so for the specific row, so like when rows 1, it's going to append everything to this. It's going to append the 2, 4, 6, 8, 10. And then when row increments by 1, that's going to go to the next one. So sorry for the coding mistakes, but yeah, that's just a lot simpler way to solve this problem. Okay, I think time is up. And that the curriculum's over. That is it for this Logistem Coding Club session. Thank you for joining. And if you have any questions, oh, put them in the chat. Oh, can you post the slides again? Yeah. I sent them to everyone. Okay, bye.